Welcome to this special webinar of the Jerusalem Press Club commemorating the 25th anniversary of the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. I'm privileged to host today Mr. Yuval Rabin, son of Yitzhak Rabin, a businessman, the founder of the Israeli Peace Initiative, and honorary chairman of the Yitzhak Rabin Foundation. Mr. Rabin, thanks for joining us. We've been commemorating the assassination of your father, our late Prime Minister, 24 times before. Was this one different from the others, except for the obvious absence of a big rally because of the COVID-19?
Hi, good morning. Thank you all for getting up early on a Sunday morning. Thank you, Uri, and the Jerusalem Press Club for having me. I can only reply by what is my sense or the intuition. I think that the quarter of the century anniversary somehow was different than the previous 24 commemorations as years, because I think it's the accumulation of many things, as you probably all are aware of, that have surfaced all the tensions and the issues, and which are actually reappearing in the Israeli society, that it made this year somewhat more intense. Maybe it's the round number, maybe it's the circumstances, but my sense is that this year's anniversary went far more noticed than previous ones.
The assassination in 1995 came as a total shock. How could an Israeli Jew assassinate a prime minister? But today it seems that few people will be seriously surprised if something of the sort will happen again. Maybe not a prime minister, because unlike in 1995, today he is well protected. But a politician, a journalist, a protester, do you agree with that?
Yes, I totally agree with that. I think in the early years after the assassination, I had my slogan or my motto was something in if I can translate it well, that thresholds are crossed once. And the threshold of assassination happened in 95, and any consequence, any subsequent incident like this is not the crossing of a threshold. That threshold has been passed in the Israeli society. Of course, there were other incidents prior to that, but the killing, intentional, premeditated, politically motivated assassination in that scope has certainly never happened in Israel. I hope never will. I will not bet it will not happen. Gauging the sentiments on the streets, in the network, the social networks, the rhetorics of the politicians, I think that we should never rule out any repeat incidents. I also think that things happen in an unanticipated way. I mean, I'm not sure that the next shock will occur in the same way. It will, I'm almost certain it will, but I don't know how it will happen. Will it be another assassination? Will it be something else? I don't know.
So the lessons from that terrible event haven't been learned seriously?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid that if anything, we see only further regression, and the processes that were expressed, were portrayed in incitement and the protests of 94, 95 have only deepened the challenge of the rule of law, the challenge of authority, the challenge of leadership that, and it's actually the leadership that challenges the system in such a profound way is very, very problematic. And in fact, we're seeing once again the history repeating itself, where the system is abused in a way that actually undermines the system. And that is the scariest thing that I think we are witnessing.
There's always a question of how democracy can and should defend itself. You were critical at the time of the Attorney General in 1995, who didn't act firmly enough against those who had incited against your father. I have to make a due diligence here. I was the director of the government press office at the time, and one day in 95, going to my office at Beit Agron in Jerusalem, I saw a big ad where many chief rabbis of cities and chief judges of rabbinical courts, all civil servants getting their paychecks from the government, are calling upon the public to oppose the policy of the government. And I was shocked by this. I called the Attorney General, but he said, you know, I'm dealing with more serious matter. Obviously, he wasn't.
Yes, I mean, democracy has to, I think the real, before we resort to the legal processes, I think it's upon the leadership, the leaders to restrain themselves and to lower the flames. The flames are, I think, are very high at this point, not only in Israel, but our topic of discussion today is Israel. So I think that the language, the unrestrained language that many leaders are using these days, whether those leaders at the top or other levels of leadership, are paving the way for additional incidents of this scope and nature. So it's I don't know if there's any legal action, especially in light of the fact that the authority of the legal system is constantly challenged by the leadership. We have, and I think the basic premise of maintaining democracy is that the rule of law must be supreme, and without that, there is no basis for democracy to sustain, to maintain itself. And when the leaders themselves are on an ongoing basis continuously challenge the validity and what's the word?
Legitimacy
of their decisions, because they don't like them, it is totally breaking the structure. So there's a lot of reasons to be concerned. On the flip side, I think that what's different these days than in those days of 94, 95 is that there is seemingly showing increasing resistance on the side of the Israeli public. There's a pretty wide range of constituencies within Israel who are saying no more. And we're seeing this, I think, in increasing numbers, people out on the street protesting and demanding that the law will be applied equally to everyone.
We'll talk about leadership more in a second, but behind you, there's a virtual background made by the Ministry of Education in Israel. And education is an important sphere or channel by which you can change attitudes of public. Are you happy with the way the commemoration of the of your father in the education system is going?
I think that it's not happy, certainly not, but and I'm not directly involved, but I know from my sister, who is the head of the chair of the Rabin Center, that in spite of everything that's going on, and I'm quoting her, the Rabin Center never enjoyed such good cooperation with the Ministry of Education in the entire 25 years as it was this year. So I think it's certainly an outcome of the person who is heading the ministry, Yoav Gallant. But as much effort and as much as focus as the ministry will make, the real issue is that there is large groups, large constituencies who do not even bother to accept the materials, the training education materials sent to them by the Ministry of Education, and to provide the students with those lessons that are given to them. So we have, again, education as a whole, I think, is again, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's in digression, and this is just one case that education is suffering on all the civil studies, democracy studies, tolerance studies. All of these issues certainly require much more attention. And hopefully the pandemic will go over, and normal schedules of education will be able to resume, because under those circumstances, I think we are even potentially in more dangerous territories.
You're a bit diplomatic in referring to some groups, some sections, etc. But I just read in the paper that the Rabin Center has got a lot of attention from the general school, general education school, but not from the Zionist religious schools, which should have been the main focus of attention.
Yeah, it's a fact, and I said it diplomatically, but that is the exact stream of education that continuously wishes to ignore and to avoid confronting this painful issue under the excuse of blaming, and that is some misconception that is it's an easy way out to deal with the issue, is that they claim they've all been painted as guilty of the murder, which is, restrain my language, but it's really not the fact. Nobody is blaming a group or a stream within Judaism on the murder. There are those who know very well who they are, that bear the responsibilities, and I think you made a reference to a group, while getting paid by the government, were illegally confronting the leadership of that government and exposing the Israeli society to the split of the issue, the very difficult issue of who in fact is the authority. Is it the religious authority, or is it the state authority that has the authority on issues? And that is a huge problem that we sooner or later will confront again at some point or another, as we're witnessing today in the case of the pandemic, where again, some sectors choose to listen to the spiritual, religious authorities rather than the state authorities. So that issue is with us to stay for a long time.
In 2017, you spoke harshly against what you called the delegitimization of your father and the effort to rewrite the history of his legacy. What did you mean by that?
You know, at this point of time, I can say it was not only the delegitimization of my father. It's a general trend. This and you see this often. I mean, read it quite often on the networks. So what if he was a chief of staff? So what if he was the head of Mossad? So what if he was the head of Shabak? His opinion counts just as mine. And the answer to me is no. No, that is, whoever is sitting behind the keyboard and filthy talks his way on issues, his opinion doesn't equate to the opinion of someone who served 35 years. The station entrusted him with its security, its responsibility for operating secret missions throughout the world, who have met the enemy, who have met the partners. All these people's opinions do matter more than just anyone sitting behind the keyboard. And that the legitimization is ongoing on a daily, continuous basis, and all these people, and the list is endless, of people who have been labeled as traitors, whether it's those Air Force pilots that are now leading the Prime Minister movement, whether it's people like Dagan, Zichrono Livracha, whether it's people like Diskin, the head of Shabak, former chief of staff. So I am definitely was upset, and still I am upset, and this the ongoing process of delegitimization, which is in parallel a very dangerous process of worship. Some leaders are just being worshipped, and leadership is not about rituals and worship, it's about service, and this is the big distinction. People who come to serve, and people who come to not to worry about the compensation package day and night. That's the difference between leaders who create the day-to-day agenda of the Israeli people, of the region. And at times, this agenda requires very tough decisions, very difficult ones. I believe in the behavioral economics concept that if you do something 100 times and then 101 first time you do something different and things go wrong, it's because you took another way. No, it's not. But the fact is that people will always blame the change that caused the problem. And so it's really, in politics these days, it's better not to change, because you'll be blamed for the change. If things go bad and you didn't do anything, you're fine. And so that's very easy then to plant in the minds of people that because we went to Oslo, terrorism started. It has no relation whatsoever. And this is, I think, the deepest misconception that has established roots in the Israeli minds, and it doesn't matter. And this is where we go back to the delegitimization issue. A couple of weeks ago passed away an incredible person who tens of thousands of Israelis owe their lives to, Yitzhak Ilan, former deputy head of Shabak. And he says it very clearly. He said the terrorism outbreak of 94 was an immediate outcome of the Hebron massacre. So what do? You delegitimize Yitzhak Ilan, Zichrono Livracha. That is the mechanism that is working day and night in Israel these days, and not only in Israel, unfortunately.
In the same speech you gave in 2017 in Givat Shmuel, you said, and I quote, Yitzhak Rabin did not work against the democratic rights of those who opposed him or tried to silence those who opposed him. And without mentioning names, you say, even when he was exposed to waves of the most terrible incitement, he was the prime minister for everyone. You feel the same today?
No, we all know that it's not the same today. And I said in the same speech that his door was open always to all the municipal and local government leaders who, as we know, a lot of them are from the other party, and they received exactly the same responses that they deserve. The same was true for the leadership of the settlers movement when they came to ask him for his help, whether it was humanitarian or security issues. The door was always open for them. Yeah, I don't think that is today. Today, it's if you are either for us or against us. That I think that is the sentiment of the leaderships today. You cannot be dealing on a issue-based dialogue. You cannot engage in an issue-based dialogue if you're not in the right mindset and the right political association.
It seems that the commemoration day has become a day of collision between the Rabin family and Netanyahu, and recently even the Netanyahu family. Last year, you took on Netanyahu when you tweeted that you don't believe in, when he said in the Knesset that he could understand your pain at the wave of smears and slanders against your father. And recently, his son Yair angered you by insinuating that your father allegedly murdered Holocaust survivors. And you said it was a direct continuation of Rabin in an SS uniform. So is this an open account between your family and the Netanyahu family?
Okay, let's straighten the facts here. Referring to the same speech at Mount Herzl in 2017, I said specifically, explicitly, that the legacy of my father was that Israel comes first, and we have one country. As he used to say, we don't have a spare country. Israel it is what it is, and it's ours, and we have to fight for it. And in that spirit, and despite huge wave of criticisms, I offered my olive branch to Netanyahu, and we had a series of meetings in 2009, and in which eventually ended in a joint press conference that we called to establish a unity government that actually happened at that time. And in that press conference, I said, I'm not going to vote for Netanyahu, and I did not, and I voted for Ehud Barak and the Labour Party like I voted most of my life. But that event obviously caused me a lot of grief and a lot of criticism. And I referred to it in 2017 by saying that I in that spirit of this, mutual and joint fate in this country, I met him, and I tried to reach some kind of a mode to get over the past and move forward. And in response, he replied, okay, I will pick up the glove, which of course he never did for Netanyahu, saying he's doing, and that is something which repeats itself throughout his career. Having said it means I did it. So that is when when his son, and this was not an insinuation, when his son wrote very specifically that my father murdered Holocaust survivors, I addressed Netanyahu, not his son, because his son counts for nothing. I addressed Netanyahu and I said, I did not believe you then when you said that you will pick up the glove, as you said, on the Knesset podium. And the fact is that even in your own house, literally in your own house, this venomous expressions come out. So yeah, I don't believe him. I did not really believe him when he said it, and I sadly, very sadly, proven to be true.
You mentioned in passing the legacy of your father, and you said we don't have a spare country. But going into some more specifics, can you tell us briefly what exactly is the legacy of Yitzhak Rabin? Maybe in headlines, and both on security and international affairs, and on democracy and internal issues.
So I think we touched on all major points already, directly or indirectly. I think that the legacy is, first of all, the leadership is about service. It's about giving. It's about coming to make a change. I think people are either leaders or followers, and I have no doubt that my father was a leader. Where he came to, where whatever responsibility or authority was given, he used it to the utmost to make a change. Now, anybody who lived in the Israel in this time of 92 to 95 knows that the country underwent significant transformation. We went from a decade plus of stagnation where we had only crises to deal with, from the economic crisis of 93, 94, 83 to 85, the social divide out as an outcome of the Lebanon war, which stayed with us for 2 decades. And the country was busy with that.
And the Intifada.
And then the Intifada broke, correct? And so for a whole decade plus, Israel was dealing with crisis management only. Nothing, not a road was built, not a tree was planted, and a total stagnation with the peace process, a peace process that was brought by the right-wing Likud party, that basically they disavowed this agreement that they signed to negotiate with the Palestinians to create an interim leadership and negotiate a final status. This is all Israeli right-wing Likud-led agreement. Nothing was done in that respect. If anything else, let's not forget the Jewish underground that undermined the right-wing government that brought this agreement, and and eventually led to the Intifada and etc. And the rest is known. So when my father came in 92, he defined a very well defined vision for Israel, set new priorities, and not only talked but also executed the plan. And you can go to the Rabin Center and you can see the statistics. You can see how in the course of 2 or 3 budget cycles, education budget was more than doubled. Healthcare budget was more than doubled. Welfare, employment, roads were built, airports were built, highways were built. The periphery was brought closer to the center. And one of the questions I'm often asked is, what is the biggest achievement of your father? And clearly, I don't know how to say what really comes before what, because there were so many things done. But very often I say Highway 6 is probably the most transformational decision he made, because that changed the country. He felt the pain of the Israeli individual. He knew that the country is stuck in traffic day and night, hours after hours, going to work and back. He knew that there is no infrastructure to support the periphery, to develop, to make people want to go and move out. Yes, these processes have been continued since then, and of course, I think no one would welcome it more than he did. But this was the shift from nothing to major change was initiated by him.
We are close to wrapping up, but I want to ask you about something else. You are one of the founders of Israeli Peace Initiative. Can you tell us a word about it? And also, do you think that the window of opportunity for a two-state solution has been closed?
Okay, let's start with the Israeli Peace Initiative. First of all, let's say that it dates back to right after the 2006 war of Lebanon. And the initial motivation was that Israel has never responded to the Saudi Peace Initiative turned Arab Peace Initiative, and not even in such a way to say, to decline it, to refuse to accept it. Israel just ignored it. Israel ignored the entire Arab or Muslim world offer to normalize, to build relationships, and we felt that this is a huge mistake, and we established the Israeli Peace Initiative in order to create awareness and to start a discussion about it, and to potentially offer a Israeli response, Israeli counter offer that would be labeled as the Israeli Peace Initiative, and later we renamed this to the Israeli Regional Initiative, in full understanding that the in contrast to the very often stated back then claim that we have no partner. And our response was, it's not only that we have partner, we have many partners, as we are seeing these days. We have numerous potential partners. We try to illustrate to the Israeli public what it would mean financially, economically, to open up the borders to Israel and its neighboring countries, with the idea of whether we want 100 million or so enemies or 300, 400 million potential customers. I can tell you, to stand out there in 2009, 2010, 11, etc., and to say this, we have many partners, was not a very popular thing. And I think that, again, we missed a decade. We missed a long opportunity. I'm of course happy that this is, for whatever circumstances, we've decided to abandon the annexation and establish relationships with numerous Muslim countries. That is, of course, highly welcomed. I would not, of course, call it as a, breakthrough landmark agreements, and rather as a dividend of the agreements that were the difficult decisions, the difficult agreements signed by both Prime Minister Begin, who basically trashed the paradigm of no compromise on land to the other extreme of all the land for peace, continued with my father and his tough decision to recognize the PLO and sign the agreement with Jordan. And those agreements that came recently are definitely a continuation of that process, a highly welcome continuation, but nevertheless a continuation.
I dare ask you a question you've been probably asked many times before, the if question that historians always tell us not to ask. But anyway, had your father not been assassinated, do you think there was a chance for the Oslo Accords to materialize into a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians could live and let live next to each other?
Okay, since you worked with my father closely and you know him, he used to have and he used it very often, the expression, I don't deal with hypothetical issues, and this has been ingrained in me from day one. Don't bother me with hypothetical questions. So I'm I think it's a good way to dodge this question, and I am using it. But but in all honesty, I don't know. I think that I don't think that the reality as it is portrayed by and pretty widely commonly accepted these days vis-a-vis Oslo is the true one. You can read, I think it was today, Mati Steinberg's piece on Haaretz. To blame Arafat for everything is just an easy way out, and what I would really think we should check ourselves is what is our real intentions. And in many ways, I don't think that we really have clear, well-defined intentions. Do we want a two-state solution? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't even know what the prime minister's intentions are, because he said everything in every direction. So when you don't know what you want, what can you expect from the other side? Now, the fact, and I want to maybe go back to the previous issue, the fact that the Gulf states have abandoned or decided to avoid dealing with the Palestinian issue doesn't make me happy, because we still have the Palestinian issue. We will be dealing with the Palestinian issue whether the Gulf states or Saudi Arabia cares about them or not. We have Gaza on our border, and it's a time bomb one way or another, and we will deal with it. Our children and grandchildren will deal with it. So whether the Saudis care about them or not, that doesn't make me a lot happy. Yes, I'm happy about the potential of the economics, the potential of spreading moderation. That is, again, nothing new to me, because, as I said, I've been involved with the group that has been preaching this for over a decade. But the running away or putting the problems under a rug is certainly not the Rabin way.
Well, Rabin, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and for the candid talk. I'd like to thank my colleagues at JPC, Talia Dekel and Rachel Exil, for facilitating this webinar. Thank you all for being with us. Stay tuned to our next events, and above all, stay safe.
Thank you.